who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, December 19th, 2025, and of course it's Friday. Your readers today are
J.J. Patek
and Don Williams. Leading off with the weather. Forecast for today says rain and snow showers with a high of 43 and a low of 24. I'm thinking that may have been the prediction when they had to publish this thing, but more recently they're looking at highs in the upper 30s for the best food that we're going to see today. We'll see.
We'll see.
Cloudy tomorrow at a high of 43 and a low of 27. Sunday colder with a little snow with a high of 31 and a low of 21. Areas of low clouds on Monday, high of 29 and a low of 27. Cloudy and not as cold on Tuesday with a high of 39 and a low of 29. Clouds and the sun on Wednesday with a high of 37 and a low of 27. And Thursday's Christmas, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And talking about snow showers and a high of 31 and a low of 28.
Here we thought we might get a white Christmas.
Yeah, well, that was before the rain took everything away, including all the snow that had been plowed onto my driveway apron. I never bothered shoveling it, and this morning it was gone, so that was okay. Today, we're expecting a high of 43. The record is 53, and the record low is, the record high is 58. I misspoke. The record low is -1 back in 1919. The sun rose today, not that you could see it with all the clouds up there, but it rose at 7:42 and will set at 4:43, giving us a total possible sunshine of 9 hours and 1 minute. And I don't know, we might gain one more minute or lose one more minute rather before the days start getting longer again with the equinox coming up in a couple of days.
Yeah, a couple of days.
In the snow derby, Syracuse is leading big time.
Yeah, you got 41.7 inches of snow over there, if it hasn't melted.
Well, we'll see what happens with how much of a snow melt they get today, but they're going to stay in the lead, I think. We'll see. Brownsville, Texas had the national high with 86 yesterday, and Crosby, North Dakota, I think that's a new one on my list, -8 for the low temperature nationwide. So, that's the weather. What's on the front page?
What's on the front page is high lead levels found in many east side yards. This is from Mackenzie Schumann. Playing outside in the dirt for many children should be a normal, fun part of childhood. In some neighborhoods on Buffalo's east side, the dirt itself is dangerous. This past summer, the local nonprofit Open Buffalo found high levels of lead in the soil of the yard of more than 100 homes. The data, presented at a community meeting hosted by Open Buffalo on December 8th, adds to a growing body of evidence of the extensive ecological damage by previous industries that plagues the east side. This is something that's taken root in our community, said Franchelle Packer, executive director of Open Buffalo, during the meeting, and it's impacting every facet of our lives. High levels of lead in the soil can be toxic when breathed in or swallowed. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency set the healthy, quote-unquote, limit at 200 parts per million in soil. Open Buffalo found that 92% of its 242 soil samples on the east side exceeded that healthy limit. The average soil test result was 642 parts per million, according to the organization. And that's opposed to the shorter level that they had given before. The organization took 2 samples per home, one in the front yard and one in the backyard. Some of the samples had lead results of around 4,500 parts per million. One showed more than 16,000 parts per million, according to Jim Golden, Open Buffalo's Director of Ecological Justice and lead researcher on the study. Golden was aided by Gregory Glover, Open Buffalo's ecological justice specialist, who went to more than 3,500 homes on Buffalo's east side over the summer asking to take the soil samples. We saw kids. It was a summer. And they're out barefoot, playing in vacant lots and doing what kids are supposed to be able to do, Golden said during the meeting. It's really concerning. Lead can't be absorbed through the skin, but it can be ingested through fine dust particles that can be suspended in the air during play. Many small children also learn about the world around them by putting things in their mouth, including dirt. There's no amount of lead exposure that is considered safe. Small levels of lead ingested can lead to lifelong damage in the brain and nervous system. This can manifest itself in a young child's life as slowed growth, learning difficulties, hearing damage, speech impediments, and behavior issues. Adults are also at risk from lead exposure and can develop high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, as well as brain, kidney, and reproductive health issues. Many Buffalonians are likely used to hearing about the risks of lead exposure from drinking water that comes from lead pipes. Residents may also know to check windowsills, doorways, and porches for chip paint if their home was built before lead was banned in 1978. Lead pollution in soil is a different beast. For one, it doesn't come from one source, such as lead paint or pipes. Buffalo's east side used to be a booming industrial center for about 170 years, beginning in the 1820s. Businesses flocked to the area for its available open land close to the canals and major railways connecting Buffalo to the international trade. At least 4 lead smelters called the east side their home during this industrial boom, including the Michael Heyman Company, Lumen Bearing Company, and the Reliance Lead Solder and Babbitt Company, and the Lake Erie Smelting Corporation. The businesses would manufacture or recycle products with lead in them, and the process likely emits large amount of smoke polluted with lead that could then blanket the surrounding neighborhoods. But the businesses have closed, and in their old footprints, townhouses, apartments, and vacant lots exist today. It's not just old smelters, however. Many old breweries, factories, and homes that once stood in Buffalo's east side have been torn down in recent decades, leaving behind vacant lots potentially laden with polluted soil. Cars also used to puff out exhaust contaminated by leaded gasoline before it was phased out beginning in 1975. And what goes up must come down. Soils along roadways have been found around the country to be contaminated with lead. We're not here to point a finger at particular elected officials or a corporation. This is a problem that's been over 150 years in the making, Parker said. Open Buffalo said it is more interested in pointing to possible solutions. The results are disturbing, but it's also affirming, said Buffalo Common Council members Anita Everhart, who represents the Maston District and attended the December 8th meeting. We knew it was going to be bad, and now we can see that it is really bad, and it's a call to action. The Erie County Health Department has found the overwhelming majority of lead poisoning cases come from kids exposed to lead paint. Lead in soil, however, remains a focal point for the agency and advises tenants and homeowners to assume soil could be hazardous. During investigations, when our public health sanitarians observe bare soil that be accessible to a child, we require the bare soil to be covered with an acceptable covering, like grass or stone, etc., and to be maintained by the property owner to limit future exposure to potential lead-contaminated soil, said Carol Lane, a spokesperson for the agency, in an email to the Buffalo News. The state's new lead rental registry requires landlords to register their properties, conduct lead hazard inspections, and ensure remediation of any identified hazards. If lead hazards aren't remediated within 45 days, landlords could be fined. The new registry program required landlords to test bare soil for lead, Kane noted. The health department also advises residents to plant grass or shrubs, install ground cover such as stones, or use mulch to cover potentially contaminated soil. Using doormats can prevent lead-polluted soil from being tracked indoors. And shoes should be taken off before going inside, the health department advises. Children and pets should be kept away from bare soil. How are you going to do that with a pet? Root crops such as carrots, fennel, beets, potatoes, radishes, and garlic, as well as leafy greens, including lettuce, spinach, kale, and collards, can be prone to absorbing lead from the soil. Buffalo gardens should not grow crops in the ground. Instead, use a raised garden bed filled with clean soil, which can put a barrier between contaminated soil and plants. But it's expensive, said Tim Chen, executive director of the Grassroots Gardens of Western New York. If you can't build and fund a raised bed in your own yard, a community garden is a good place to start. Grassroots Gardens spends upwards of $15,000 annually shipping in clean soil to their community gardens in Buffalo and Niagara Falls, Chen said. Although costly, it's necessary, he said, given the likelihood that any soil in the region could be contaminated with lead and other toxins from industry. The organization has a Safe Roots guide on its website at grassrootsgardens.org/safe roots urban growing soil safety for gardeners looking for tips on how to protect themselves and their food.
Well, I just for fun, counted off the number of places I've lived during my lifetime, 10 of them. And all of them were built before 1978, so there's potential for lead in any of those.
I grew up over there in South Buffalo, and we were right within sight of the Lackawanna steel plant over there, Beth Steel, and the stuff that came floating over your house, you couldn't hang your laundry outside, it would be orange.
Yeah, I remember. Well, we have a piece that probably a number of people might have been looking for from the New York Times. Sonia Rayo says, like many families, the Reiners struggled with son's addiction. He went to drug treatment 18 times as a teenager. He had a heart attack on a plane after doing cocaine. He tormented his family with violent outbursts, stints living on the streets, and a never-ending cycle of relapse. Nick Reiner, age 32 now, struggled with drug addiction for nearly 2 decades, something he and his family shared with the public. This week he was charged with murder in the death of his parents, director Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle Singer Reiner. His ordeal and its impact on his parents and family has resonated with millions of people, including Patty Vargas. Her daughter isolated herself and lived on the streets while battling addiction to alcohol and drugs. Her son developed a heart condition from drug use and died of heart failure in 2017 while intoxicated, just 1 month shy of turning 36. As a parent, I would have cut off both my arms to save my kids, said Vargas of Vacaville, California. She took out a second mortgage and eventually lost her home covering treatment costs, she said. This is a health crisis. It's not a moral family. It's not a family screw-up. It's an illness. Some 50 million Americans struggle with drug and alcohol addiction. It can require multiple stints in rehab before people truly begin the recovery process, according to experts. Others may never reach that point. Drug overdose is the leading cause of death for Americans between 18 and 45 years old. It's really hard to know whether or not someone is going to recover, said Colleen Berriesa, a Rutgers University professor who studies addiction. Though rare, drug use and related mental health disorders can sometimes lead to violent and deadly actions, usually while a person is under the influence of some types of drugs or trying to obtain them. In 2021, a man whose family said he was addicted to opioids and grew angry when doctors wouldn't prescribe them was sentenced to life in prison for a deadly shooting at a Minnesota health clinic. Prosecutors in the Reiners killing have not indicated whether they believe substance use played a role in the murders, and no information about Nick's mental health history has emerged. As the celebrity son of a prominent Hollywood filmmaker, Nick Reiner and his family had access to the highest-end resources to treat his addiction. But sometimes money and resources aren't enough, said Gary Mendel, a hotel executive whose son Brian killed himself in 2011. His son was 25 and had struggled with addiction for more than a decade, said Mendel, who lives in Westport, Connecticut. Mendel founded Shatterproof, an addiction crisis nonprofit, after his son's death. I had all the resources that anyone could have, he said. I could afford anything related to the treatment of my son, but shame and stigma still drove Brian to die by suicide, he said. The Reiners also struggled with how to treat Nick's addiction. In 2015, Rob Reiner told the Los Angeles Times that he regretted not listening to his son, who said a drug treatment program was not working for him. Nick had co-written a script loosely based on his experiences with addiction and numerous stints in rehab, a tumultuous journey that had begun 7 years earlier. Rob, a director for 3 decades who had made iconic films like When Harry Met Sally and The Princess Bride, saw, if not a hit, at the very least an opportunity to bond. And so he started pre-production on Being Charlie, beginning an experience that would put Rob and Nick's own complicated relationship on display. Backing Nick's script was a chance for Rob to show that he was finally listening, a motive for directing the film that he did not hide. Nick's descent into heroin and cocaine addiction, during which he was sometimes homeless, had created a chasm in the family, one that his sobriety could not heal. Rob and Michelle often blamed themselves, harboring regret for taking the advice of experts who pushed tough love. We were desperate, and because the people had diplomas on the wall, we listened to them when we should have been listening to our son, Rob said. That sentiment resonated with Kathy Strain of Berks County, Pennsylvania, who became the legal guardian to her nephew Tommy and considered him a son. She lost him to an opioid overdose in 2018 when he was 27. He died in his recovery home, which Strain said did not have Narcan, the medication that can reverse an opioid overdose. Strain now leads support programs at Partnership to End Addiction, one of the nation's largest nonprofit groups dedicated to helping families deal with substance use. She said Nick Reiner's history spotlights a need to improve mental health and addiction treatment centers and to provide ongoing services after patients leave rehab. Shame and guilt mounted as she watched her inability to stop using affect her family, she said. Those feelings kept her out of recovery for years. She imagined that someone with Nick Reiner's history could have felt similarly. We had so many opportunities and so many things that were available to him and didn't have to worry much or want for much. It takes you into some pretty dark places, she said. Well,
That's sad.
sad story. Well, you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service, and the time is now 17 minutes past the hour. Time for some opinions from the local editors. Right first, Hard-Won Growth, a series of pieces here. East Side projects are set to receive a much-needed $10 million Christmas present from New York State. It's part of a fund Governor Kathy Hochul first announced in May. The money will be spread across more than 30 commercial and mixed-use projects, which are splitting $10 million from the new East Side Building Fund, as reported by the News' Samantha Chrisman. The funding is designed to go toward renovations and additional development. It is also intended to bolster private investment. This should make a difference for businesses. Infrastructure updates are among the most important expenses these small business owners face on a regular basis, especially given Buffalo's largely aging building stock and the ever-growing costs of new construction. It also affirms Hochul's commitment to supporting development of the city's east side. Like former Buffalo Mayor Byron Brown, Hochul has received criticism for inattention to this long-neglected area. This funding will enhance efforts such as Loads of Love, 61 Laurel Street, which will construct a 2-story mixed-use building with a community laundromat, cafe, and affordable housing units. Ladies of Charity at Buffalo at 1122 Broadway will use funds for exterior renovations at the volunteer-led thrift shop for families with new babies, such as a new roof, signs, windows, masonry repairs, and improved lighting. The fund grew out of 3 former Empire State Development programs and is poised to make a difference near priority business districts like Jefferson, Fillmore, and Michigan Avenues.
And Damien ascends. Damien University's growth, aided by forward-thinking leadership from President Gary A. Olson, has been impressive. As the News' Mike Petra reported, Olson has been laser-focused on making Damien stand out as a highly competitive field, and he has not been shy about raising the funds that would boost this goal. That fundraising mission for the Amherst campus includes leading by example. Olson and his wife, Linda Worsham, gave a $1 million donation to the university during the first campaign and are repeating that effort. The liberal arts private school focused on healthcare has been diligent. This first comprehensive 5-year fundraising campaign in 2017 exceeded its original goal and raised $26.5 million for Damon. A second fundraising campaign was announced in September. Damon hopes to raise an impressive $40 million over the next 5 years to help with the additional infrastructure improvements, elevating its academic offerings, and strengthening student support efforts. Some local higher education institutions have been struggling, but Damon saw a 13% increase in enrollment for the first-year students this fall. In addition, the university had a significant increase from last year in new transfer students and graduate student enrollment. See Petro's article for more about Olson's vision for the university and the road ahead. And Scrutiny is honored. The News' Dan Herbeck recently wrote about Senior District Judge William M. Scrutiny's plan to retire. It may not have come as any big surprise, but this was a moment to recognize the judge's decades of accomplishments. Scrutiny, 80, has served as a federal judge since 1990. Patrick LeCamp reported on a well-deserved farewell surprise from court personnel abundant with praise for the judge. It's difficult to put into words how beloved Judge Scrutiny was by the lawyers in our district, Attorney Cheryl Myers-Buth said before him in the court. Scrutiny said his years on the federal bench have been a tremendous honor. That honor is shared by the public he so wholeheartedly served.
Mm-hmm. Well, a couple of charming editorial cartoons today. For a change, Michael Ramirez is on the left-hand page. Not that that matters to anyone who's just listening, but there's an old-looking laboratory, candle lit and test tubes and microscope and so forth. And the gentleman standing behind an old bearded guy saying, "I'm sorry, Dr. Pasteur, but your vaccines don't pass the RFK Jr. smell test." Mm-hmm. And Tom Stiglitz, also the creator syndicate, has one showing a couple of people sitting watching a TV broadcast where the anchorman is saying, up until this year, it was unheard of for a sitting American president to sue a news outlet. To which one of the people watching says aloud, he's more upset over the lawsuits for slander and libel than the actual slander and libel. Well, there you have it.
Now we'll move on to a major editorial today from David Rucker. Johnson is an ironic target for frustrated House Republicans. Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House of Representatives, is under fire from all directions, from Democrats naturally, but also from fellow Republicans angry with him for, well, just about everything. My bill didn't pass. Blame Johnson. My bill was ignored. Blame Johnson. The perennially broken appropriations process is still broken. Blame Johnson. The process of vetting legislature in a committee before proceeding to debate and vote for the House, colloquially referred to as a regular order, is sporadic to non-existence. Blame Johnson. Republican leadership refused to circumvent regular order to grant my legislature a floor vote. Blame Johnson. I'm feeling mistreated by the Senate Republicans, President Trump, and the White House Legislative Affairs team. Blame Johnson. That's right, blame Johnson. These are just some of the complaints House Republicans are having right now with their day job. That's what GOP lobbyists and well-placed party operatives tell me, explaining that Johnson is bearing the brunt of that frustration because he is a politically safe target. Republicans on Capitol Hill certainly aren't going to blame Trump, lest they elicit an angry social media post with a GOP primary season right around the corner. Meanwhile, Johnson, in a constant struggle to hold together a threadbare, fractious majority, is highly unlikely to retaliate. Doing so could create even more renegades, leaving the 53-year-old Louisiana Republican more powerless than he already is.
The Speaker knows he has a 2-vote margin on a narrow and very diverse majority. It appears his strategy is to produce wins in legislative passage of the president's agenda while having to take the arrows of members who are frustrated by the process or failure to see their individual legislative plan passed by the House. Tom Reynolds, a Republican former congressman from Western New York, told me he knows it only takes a few members to knock leadership off its legislative agenda, added Reynolds. Once a key party strategist who served as chairman of the National Republican Congressional Committee and now works as policy advisor for Holland and Knight. Indeed, rather than asking why Johnson lately appears to be the incredible shrinking speaker, a better question might be whether he was ever in control of the House at all. It's important to remember that Johnson assumed the gavel without any power base or wealth of institutional support. The mild-mannered attorney from Shreveport in northwest Louisiana was elected to the House less than a decade prior. He didn't climb the rungs of leadership or chair influential committees while meticulously assembling a network of political allies in Congress and on K Street along the way. Rather, he was installed in October 2023 because he was the only Republican that House Republicans could agree on after his predecessor, Kevin McCarthy, was sacked by a small group of GOP rebels who leveraged their party's tiny majority to force the selection of a new speaker. The implicit threat that Johnson's ability to govern could come crashing down at any moment has hung over the speaker ever since, in part because for 2+ years he has had to manage a majority that rests on a handful of seats. As of today, Republicans number 220, the Democrats 213. They would number 215, but for 2 vacancies. That's not exactly a governing majority when 218 votes are required to pass legislation. And yet, for a time this year, Johnson looked like a magician. The Speaker had unified House Republicans around Trump's top priority, the reconciliation package now known as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. He kept his conference together during a record-long government shutdown instigated by Senate Democrats. But Johnson's ability to wrangle the competing factions and independent-minded politicians that comprise his majority has diminished as the looming 2026 midterm elections raise the specter of an electoral bloodbath. His capacity to legislate has also been stymied by differences with Senate Republicans and by a president more interested in signing executive orders than lawmaking.
Considered in toto, Johnson has very little room to maneuver and a few cards to play, as Trump might say. It's a problem that is not only structural and political, said Joseph Postel, an associate professor of politics at Hillsdale College in Hillsdale, Michigan, who has written extensively on the history of Congress. I suppose the Speaker could solve the immediate problem by just opening the floodgates and allowing more measures from all sides to reach the floor for up or down votes. But most people in the majority party, I think, would be dissatisfied with the results, said Postel via email. The minority party would drive much of the agenda by strategically advancing bills to divide the Republican Party, he explained. Then people would complain that the Speaker is not exerting enough influence over the process, precisely the opposite of what they are saying now. Which gets me to the rather ironic point about the various objections to Johnson's leadership emanating from disgruntled House Republicans. They've been perfectly content to cede their Article I constitutional power to Trump, rendering themselves no better than members of Parliament under the thumb of a prime minister. There are few, if any, demands coming from House Republicans for Johnson to buck the president and run the chamber like the separate supreme branch of the U.S. government it was designed to be. Johnson has certainly participated in this self-restraint, and House Republicans have every right to confront the Speaker about their creeping sense of powerlessness. But they might want to look in the mirror first. Boy, that nasty mirror.
Oh, yeah. Yes, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of us all?
They're not fair.
Mm-hmm. Well,
in any definition of the word.
You're listening to a reading of today's news, Buffalo News, on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service at 29 minutes past the hour. We turn to My View. This is the view today of Kelly Beals of Pendleton. As the holidays approach, I find myself reflecting on all that I hold close to my heart: family, friends, pets, and all those material possessions I've amassed over the years. I am an experienced hanger-on supporting the life cycle of stuff across generations. I hang on to things that I think the kids might want or even cherish when they move out, only to learn that they don't. For clarification, I mean they don't want, but I suppose this could mean they don't move out either. All this stuff can be a source of stress, cluttering up not only my physical space, but also my mind. Every new year, I take inventory and say to myself, this is the year that I part ways with those things that no longer serve a purpose, as a first step in my journey to adopt a more simplistic, clutter-free lifestyle. In the fleeting moments of inspiration, I've subscribed to the KonMari methodology, and I've even purchased the book Minimalists, Your Step-by-Step Guide to a Better Home, Wardrobe, and Life at the checkout counter at TJ Maxx. At the last minute, I threw it atop the heaping pile of clothes and home
Good
decor.
grief.
However, I have employed some of Marie Kondo's strategies. For instance, before making a purchase, I'll ask myself, do I really need another candle? How many nail polishes does a girl actually need? Will this coffee mug bring me joy? If you happen to see me in a store striking an inquisitive pose, just move along. But where the true inquisition happens is my closet at home. As I sit in my closet, well, there really isn't space to sit, as I stand sideways with my arms hung tightly to my sides, marveling at a myriad of clothes, shoes, handbags, hats, scarves, and belts, I find myself asking yet again, why is it that I hang on to these things that I haven't worn or used in years? And more importantly, why do I have such difficulty in letting them go? Like those 5 pairs of sneakers, workout clothes, smart business suits, cosmic-themed flowy tops and pants, and the harmonica that peeks out from underneath a stack of sweaters on the top shelf. While I stand underneath the stark white light bulb that hangs from the ceiling above my head, the answer suddenly comes to me. I realize letting go of these things is essentially letting go of the person I hope one day to become. Getting rid of those worn-out sneakers and workout clothes would be letting go of my inner athlete that one day emerges across the finish line. Getting rid of those worn-out sneakers and workout clothes would be letting go of my inner athlete that one day emerges across the finish line earning a first-place medal. The smart suits would be letting go of the emergent executive on the rise. Getting rid of the cosmic-themed flowing garments would be letting go of the Zen master on her path to conquering inner peace. The harmonica would be letting go of being plucked from the crowd at a Bruce Springsteen concert like Courtney Cox, but instead of bopping to Dancing in the Dark, playing The River alongside Bruce and the E Street Band. So when I ask these questions, do these things bring me joy? My answer is quite simply no, but I was asking the wrong question. I think the better question for me is to ask, do these things bring me hope? And the resounding answer is yes. Yes, they do.
Good grief.
I don't think that would work for me. I know I'd be lying to myself.
It's called Who Are You Kidding? And the answer is myself.
Yup.
Well, from another voice, which today it's about healthcare. The author is Joyce Markievicz. She's an RN, MBA, and president and CEO of Catholic Health. And she writes to us, when someone lands in the ICU, the first person to catch a sudden change in their breathing or heart rate is often a nurse. When a family is navigating a crisis, it's frequently a social worker who connects them to care. And when someone is recovering from a stroke, it's a physical therapist who guides their journey with a clinical expertise. These roles require specialized education, rigorous clinical training, and a deep commitment to the people they serve. Yet under a recent set of federal student loan rules, graduate programs in nursing, social work, and physical therapy are no longer treated as professional degrees. Well, what are they? Medicine, law, dentistry, and pharmacy make the list, but these critical frontline care fields do not. This directly affects how much students can borrow to fund their degrees because students enrolled in these programs labeled professional degrees qualify for significantly higher federal student limits. Students in other graduate programs face substantially lower caps. For fields where a graduate degree is a gateway to advanced clinical practice and teaching, these limits make it harder to pursue the education required to serve on the front lines of our healthcare systems and educate the future workforce. The timing couldn't be worse. Western New York faces a shortage of qualified applicants while healthcare organizations compete for a shrinking pool of clinicians. Behavioral health needs have grown exponentially, and chronic disease and aging populations are driving up demand. Every educational barrier deepens these shortages. The Department of Labor classifies nurses, social workers, and physical therapists as professional employees. The Bureau of Labor Statistics describes them as skilled, fast-growing professionals essential to the nation's workforce. State licensing boards require graduate-level education. In every meaningful sense, they are professional fields. If we want a strong healthcare system, we must recognize these professions for what they are. Federal officials need to revise the professional degree list to include nursing, social work, physical therapy, and other frontline health and behavioral health fields. The majority of patient and community-facing work is carried out by these professionals. Our policies must stop pretending otherwise. And again, this is from Joyce Markievicz, President and CEO of Catholic Health. And she speaks wise truth.
I think so. Well, we turn to the Buffalo Next section for some business information or something like that. Paul Wiseman and Ann D'Innocencio of the Associated Press report that U.S. inflation slowed unexpectedly last month, according to data that was delayed and likely distorted by the government shutdown. The Labor Department reported yesterday that its consumer price index rose 2.7% in November from a year earlier, yet year-over-year inflation remains well above the Federal Reserve's 2% target, and Americans are dismayed by the high cost of living. The report was delayed 8 days by the federal government's 43-day shutdown, which also prevented the Labor Department from compiling overall numbers for consumer prices and core inflation in October. Yesterday's report gave investors, businesses, and policymakers their first look at this consumer price index since the September numbers were released on October 24th. Consumer prices had risen 3% in September from a year earlier, and forecasters had expected the November CPI to match that year-over-year increase. It's likely a bit distorted, said Diane Swank, chief economist at the tax and consulting firm KPMG. Good news is that it's cooling. We'll take a win when we can get it. Still, Swank added, the data is truncated, and we just don't know how much of it to trust. But by disrupting the economy, especially government contracting, the shutdown may have contributed to a cooling in prices, she said. Energy prices, driven up by sharply higher fuel oil prices, rose 4.2% in November. Excluding volatile food and energy prices, so-called core inflation rose 2.6%. compared with a 3% year-over-year gain in September and the lowest since March 2021. U.S. inflation remains stubbornly high, partly because of President Trump's decision to impose double-digit taxes on imports from almost every country on Earth, along with targeted tariffs on specific products like steel, aluminum, and autos. The president's tariffs have so far proved less inflationary than economists feared, but they do put upward pressure on prices and complicate matters at the Fed, which is trying to decide whether to keep cutting its benchmark interest rate to support a sputtering job market, or whether to hold off until inflationary pressures ease. The central bank last week decided to reduce the rate for the third time this year, but Fed officials signaled that they expect just one cut in 2026. Kay Haig, global co-head of fixed income and liquidity solutions at Goldman Sachs Asset Management, warned that the November numbers were noisy. The canceling of the October report makes month-on-month comparisons impossible, for example, while the truncated information gathering process given the shutdown could have caused systematic biases in the data. The Fed will instead focus on the December CPI released in mid-January, just 2 weeks before its next meeting, as a more accurate bellwether for inflation. Trump delivered a politically charged speech Wednesday that aired live during prime time by network television, seeking to pin the blame for economic challenges on Democrats. The speech was a rehash of his recent messages that has so far been unable to calm public anxiety about the rising cost of groceries, housing, utilities, and other basic goods. As the holiday season approaches, Americans are dipping into savings, scouring for bargains, and feeling like the overall economy is sputtering, a new AP NORC poll finds. The vast majority of U.S. adults say they've noticed higher than usual prices for groceries, electricity, and holiday gifts in recent months, according to the survey from the Associated Press and ORC Center for Public Affairs Research. Roughly half of Americans say it's harder than usual to afford the things they want to give as holiday gifts, and similar numbers are delaying big purchases or cutting back on non-essential purchases more than they would normally. Trump has promised an economic boom, yet inflation has stayed elevated, and the job market has weakened sharply in the wake of his import taxes. That's funny. That's not what the president said Wednesday night. I listened.
My goodness. I was Christmas shopping last night, and typically this close to Christmas, the stores and parking lots would be packed. I had plenty of moving and breathing space. And by the way, couldn't find what I wanted.
Oh, bummer.
Well, from higher education, Mike Petro says Dettinger to lead Golisano Institute. As the Golisano Institute for Business and Entrepreneurship readies for the Buffalo campus's inaugural class, it has named a new leader who comes with 35 years of experience in economic development in Western New York. Jim Dettinger will become Business Institute's inaugural Executive Vice President and Buffalo Regional Director at the start of the new year. He's currently the president of NOCO Development and Energy Company in Buffalo. Dettinger, the co-founder and former president of McGuire Development Company, was named president of NOCO Development in 2024 after serving as president for NOCO Enterprises for 4 years. This is a significant get for the Golisano Institute while it works to open a second location in downtown Buffalo as the former Buffalo News building is scheduled for fall of 2026. Applications for the Buffalo campus's inaugural class are still being accepted. The Golisano Institute is an alternative business school founded by Rochester businessman, philanthropist, and former Buffalo Sabres owner B. Thomas Golisano. The flagship location located in Rochester opened in Rochester in 2023. Jim is a great cultural and mission match for our school, Ian Mortimer, president of Golisano Institute for Business and Entrepreneurship, says in a statement. Jim brings deep commitment to helping people find economic and career relevancy. We will look back on Jim joining the Institute as one of the most important days of the Institute's history. Construction is now underway at the new campus center on Washington and Scott Street. The Buffalo location will offer the same accelerated business education designed to equip students with practical business skills and real-world experience that is offered in Rochester. Dettinger's current employer is supporting the redevelopment of Golisano Institute's Buffalo campus and spearheading several energy reduction initiatives as part of the conversion. I'm ecstatic for this new opportunity to lead and help shape future business leaders, Dettinger said in a news release. It's inspiring to see how the Institute brings students and regional businesses together to further develop economic and job opportunities in Rochester, and I look forward to making those connections in Buffalo. Dettinger led McGuire Development Company, a commercial real estate development firm in Western New York, and major development projects such as Buffalo City Mission, Vision Health, and the Concourse Center and Pegula Sports and Entertainment headquarters. Previously, he served as executive officer in the Seminole Real Estate Services Corporation, a subsidiary of Seminole, and he was senior vice president of Seminole Development. Additionally, Dettinger volunteers as a vice president of the ECMC Lifeline Foundation and serves as a board member of the Buffalo Niagara Partnership and for the Amherst Police Foundation. The Golisano Institute offers a 2-year professional certification in business and entrepreneurship at a tuition of $8,900 per year.
Fascinating. As part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, call us at 716-821-5555. Just 2 listings locally. Cusimano Rosemary A. She was 91, native of Buffalo, but lived in Syracuse for nearly the last half a century. And Smith Kathy Catalano. She died on Monday at 82 years of age. Doesn't say where she was from. But we do have several detailed obituaries from the New York Times. Robert McFadden reports that Peter Arnett, an intrepid Associated Press combat correspondent who won a Pulitzer Prize for coverage of the Vietnam War and became one of the world's best-known television reporters on the scene of wars and insurrections for 18 years with CNN. He died Wednesday in Newport Beach, California at 91. Arnett's daughter Elsa confirmed his death and said the cause was prostate cancer. From Vietnam's jungles to war-torn Iraq, where he interviewed President Saddam Hussein, and was twice among the last Western TV broadcasters in Baghdad as the Persian Gulf War began in 1991, and as an American-led coalition invaded in 2003, Arnett broke news and rules, infuriated national leaders, and inspired generations of journalists. Over 45 years, Arnett, by his own account, covered 17 wars in Asia, the Middle East, Europe, and Latin America, first for the Associated Press and later for CNN and other television and print organizations. He made television documentaries, wrote 2 books, lectured widely, and in 1997 interviewed Osama bin Laden, the leader of the al-Qaeda terrorist organization, somewhere in Afghanistan. In 1964, Arnett married a Vietnamese woman, Nina Nguyen. They had 2 children, Elsa and Andrew, then divorced after a long separation and were reconciled in 2006. Arnett's survivors include Nina and their 2 children. From Ash Wu of the New York Times, Christine Choi, a bold filmmaker whose influential documentaries, including the Oscar-nominated Who Killed Vincent Chin, probed social justice issues involving Asian Americans and other marginalized people, died December 7th in New York City. She was 76. Her death at a hospital was confirmed by her son, Fleta Siegel, who said the cause was cancer. She lived in Lower Manhattan. A faculty member of New York University's Tisch School of the Arts since 1988, Choi made dozens of short and feature-length films exploring historical and contemporary events in which race, identity, and privilege emerged, and sometimes merged, as themes. Who Killed Vincent Chin, made in 1987, about a high-profile hate crime, was co-directed with Renee Tajima Pena. That's a multicultural name for you. The film, which aired on public television stations, received a Peabody Award and became a staple of cinema studies courses. In 2021, the film was inducted into the Library of Congress National Film Registry for its cultural significance. Choi's own adventures became a source of fascination. In an animated short by her students, Louis and Noah Kloster, who were brothers, she recounted the story of how she once booked a round-trip flight to Canada just to buy duty-free cigarettes. In her younger years, she was on familiar terms with members of the Black Panther Party as well as the radical group Weather Underground. She recalled knowing the parents of Tupac Shakur, both of them Panthers. I used to babysit him. Can you believe it? Her marriage to Siegel ended in divorce. But in addition to her son Fleta, she is survived by a daughter, Ku Ling Yerman, another son, Tatanka Tan, a sister, Kathy Chai Esposito, and 5 grandchildren. And from Alec Traub of the New York Times, as a girl in 1940s Chicago, Jeanette Winter found pleasure but also confusion in telling stories through drawing. This, she knew, was her passion, but how could it ever be her life? Jeanette never read about the lives of artists. What artists she knew about were not women, and people who did what she loved professionally, illustrators of children's books, seemed as remote as fictional characters and even names that suggested otherworldly glamour. After decades of study and work, however, Winter joined their ranks. She found an unusual specialty in turning the lives of great artists, often figures renowned for aesthetic sophistication, like Emily Dickinson and Johann Sebastian Bach, into inviting, inspiring picture books for children. Wow. I always wanted to be an artist, but I had no role models, she said in an interview with the blog and shopping site A Mighty Girl. In another interview with a fellow children's author, Patricia Newman, Winter spoke autobiographically about one of her illustrated biographies, My Name is Georgia, written in 1998 about Georgia O'Keeffe. It is a book, she said, I would have liked to have as a child. Winter died on November 7th at a hospital in the Manhattan borough of New York City. She was 86. The cause was heart and kidney failure, her son, Jonah Winter, said. Winter was the writer, illustrator, or both of more than 65 children's books, so many that she lost count. At her death, Publishers Weekly wrote, she is widely credited with helping to establish what is now a robust picture book nonfiction category. A 2003 review in the New York Times praised Winter's biographies for giving children the opportunity to grasp art and poetry otherwise cordoned off for adults. She earned a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree from the University of Iowa in 1960. That same year, she married Roger Winter, who was also an artist, and they moved to New York City. Both worked at libraries before relocating to Texas, where they raised their two sons, Jonah and Max. Winter's husband and their two sons survive her. In the past 30 years, she and her husband lived in the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Her collaboration with her son Jonah ultimately led him to establish a successful career of his own, writing children's books. Interesting stuff today.
Yep. Well, we're going to move on to some entertainment here. From Georgia Nichols, the Royal Stars. We're going to tell you what your horoscope is. Happy birthday for Friday, December 19th of 2025. You're independent and individualistic. You're passionate about your views and love a stimulating debate. This is a year of work and building foundations, both inner and external. Take charge of your health. The stars show the kind of day you'll have. 5 being dynamic, 4 positive, 3 average, 2 so-so, and 1 difficult. And it seems like it's kind of lower end of the spectrum today. Aries has 3 stars. Today, the new moon urges you to think about how you can expand your world through further education or travel. However, because Saturn opposes this configuration, you might have a gloomy outlook. Tonight, your high vis. Taurus, 2 stars. Although today's new moon is an opportunity to think about debt and how to improve your finances, as well as improve shared property arrangements, tonight, explore and learn. Gemini is also 2 stars. It's ironic because the new moon is opposite your sign, which is your once-a-year opportunity to think about how to improve your closest relationships. Tonight, check your finances. And Cancer is 2 stars. This is not an easy day for you because you're a moon child, and today is the new moon. Tonight, listen to someone. I'm not sure about that logic. Leo is 3 stars. Be patient with kids as well as romantic partners and social outings today. Your expectations may leave you feeling disappointed. Tonight, get better organized. I'm just thinking about a Leo I know. Virgo, 2 stars. The new moon today is the best day of the year to think about how to improve your relations with home and family. Meanwhile, in another part of the forest, the fact is that today these relations are challenged. Tonight, socialize. Libra, 2 stars. Don't blame yourself today if you're disappointed that conversations with others are discouraging. This is a tough day for everyone. Accept this and work within your limitations. Tonight, relax at home. Scorpio, 2 stars. Today's new moon wants you to improve how you handle your money and possessions, but you might face difficulties with social situations, your kids, or a romantic partner. Tonight, an interesting conversation. Sagittarius, 3 stars. Today, the new moon is in your sign, which is your chance to think about how to improve your appearance and how you relate to others. Tonight, check your belongings. Capricorn, 2 stars. This week has been challenging, and today's gloomy. One positive aspect is that fiery Mars is in your sign, boosting your energy and determination. Tonight, you're in the power seat. Aquarius, 2 stars. Even though you might want to look for ways to improve your relations with friends and groups, ironically, relations with friends and groups are challenged today. Tonight, enjoy privacy. Gee, it sounds like tonight we should all be private. And then Pisces, finally, we've got 2 stars, your high vis today. People notice you. Unfortunately, relations with parents, bosses, and authority figures are strained. Tonight, enjoy friendship with others. Well, so there it is with your stars, boys and girls.
What else? What happened today in history?
Let's see now. Let's see what's going on. Well, in 1777, during the American Revolutionary War, General George Washington led his army of more than 12,000 soldiers to Valley Forge, Pennsylvania to camp for the winter. In 1907, 239 workers died in an explosion of the Dark coal mine near Van Meter, Pennsylvania. In 1960, fire broke out on the hangar deck of a nearly completed aircraft carrier USS Constellation in the New York Naval Shipyard, killing 50 civilian workers. In 1972, Apollo 17 splashed down the Pacific, concluding the Apollo program of crewed lunar landings. Yeah, we haven't sent anybody to the moon since then, have we?
Mm-hmm.
In 1998, President Bill Clinton was impeached by the U.S. House of Representatives for perjury and obstruction of justice, and he was subsequently acquitted by the Senate. In 2008, citing imminent danger to the national economy, President George W. Bush ordered a $17.4 billion emergency bailout of the U.S. auto industry. In 2011, North Korea announced the death of 2 days earlier of leader Kim Jong II. North Korea marched by thousands to mourn while state media proclaimed his youngest son Kim Jong-un as the nation's new leader. And finally, in 2016, a truck rammed into the crowded Christmas market in central Berlin, killing 12 people. The suspected attacker was killed in a police shootout 4 days later. Well, that all sounds interesting. Let's see if we can find some good news.
Actually, that was Kim Jong-il, not Kim Jong II.
Oh, was it?
Yep.
Oh,
That's
sorry.
okay.
I don't pay much attention to Korean. I probably should.
Well, we've got a few minutes left in our first hour here. Jonathan Epstein reports that lack of power halts expansion by a southern tier food distributor.
Wow.
Inadequate electrical power and a timetable of nearly 2 years before National Grid can get it fixed has forced a southern tier food distributor to delay a $41.4 million project to relocate its operations from Falconer to a new refrigerated food warehousing and distribution center that it plans to build in the town of Mena in Chautauqua County. Maple Vale Farms had already been approved for its plan to build a larger new building on a 194-acre site at 3196 Route 426 in Mena, north of Findlay Lake. The 144,000 square foot facility would enable the company to expand its distribution operations and better serve a customer base that extends from Rochester to Cleveland and south toward Pittsburgh. It would include office space and a truck maintenance facility, and the project will keep the company in the county while retaining 213 full-time positions and creating 23 new jobs. It even obtained $5.24 million in tax breaks over 10 years from the Chautauqua County Industrial Development Agency in September, and construction was slated to begin in the fall, with completion by the first quarter of 2027. Never count your chickens before they're hatched, Maple Vale Chief Operating Officer Keith Rogers told the CCIDA board on December 16th. We were moving full speed ahead in a timeline to begin moving earth this October, but it didn't count on having trouble with the electricity, specifically the intention of extension of more electrical power capacity to the new site. That's because, according to Rogers, when the company bought the property 2 years ago with expansion in mind, National Grid had told the company it wouldn't be a problem. Yet, as of October 1st, when the company was ready to start construction, they still couldn't say when we could bring the power, Rogers said. Worse, when officials did give a time frame, it was 2 years away. And even after the company got county and state officials to apply pressure, National Grid was only able to move up the timing by half a year to 18 months. Now Maple Vale has to import stone and other materials to augment the site. The extra costs could range from $1.5 million to $3 million, not including the generator. So the CCIDA agreed to extend its standard 10-year property tax break by another 5 years at 50% of the full tax payment, saving the company an extra $1 million. You're listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for today, Friday, December 19th. On your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service, we'll return for more readings after this short break. Your readers today are
JJ Patek
and Don Williams.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers today are
Don Williams.
and J.J. Patek, and we're going to go to some city and region articles from Ben Sugimoto. School 90 touts strengths as it fights to remain open. A prime example of just how tight-knit the School 90 community is took place seconds before Marshawn Goodrum called the reporter for an interview. The kindergarten teacher entered the hallway of the early childhood center and saw a young student amid a meltdown, she said. She didn't think twice before lending a hand. She said she prides herself as a black teacher who is able to connect with kids who look like her. He's not even my student, and I don't even really know his name, but I do know he's in distress because there are 2 staff members trying to refocus him, Goodrum told the Buffalo News. My kids are in specials right now, so I have that moment just to step aside and just talk to them. That anecdote is just one of many from interviews with 10 people advocating for School 90, which has been recommended, along with School 3, by Buffalo Public Schools Closure Committee to cease operations ahead of the next school year. This district this week, however, pumped the brakes on the closure process until a new school board is seated in January. Judging from the 7 speakers and twice as many supporters at Wednesday's Buffalo School Board meeting, the pause has done little to allay School 90's fear about the future. After all, multiple members of the closure committee said School 90 fit the categories prioritized by a Buffalo public survey, especially low enrollment at a location somewhat dense with schools, and drew greater attention to the controversial recommendations of School 3, a West Side bilingual school that held a sizable rally Tuesday that featured politicians and Hispanic community leaders. But maybe the East Side School near Martin Luther King Jr. Park should not be a shoo-in to close, agree the School 90 speakers. We are working our tails off at School 90. School 90 principal Michelle Hope Barnes told the board, "We do not deserve to close. Please reconsider that decision." A School 90 statements to the board and the news interviews found a common thread: don't punish us because we're small. It's actually positive, distinguishing trait of the pre-kindergarten through 2nd grade school. One thing you will feel as soon as you walk into this place is the homey vibe, Goodrum said. We're one big family. We're very supportive of each other, and everything that happens throughout the school day is done with supports. The sense of family appears to be more than a feel-good talking point. I've been called Grandma. I've been called Nana, Mom, and Auntie, said Carmen Evans, a teacher assistant for a pre-kindergarten special education classroom. A child walks up to me and gives me a hug and tells me they love me, but they don't want to go home. And I say, "Oh, baby, it's okay. I'll see you tomorrow." And when I meet the bus the next day, I see this big smile and they're happy, or they'll say, "I came back." The school isn't just a facility. As the smallest of 7 early childhood centers in the district, School 90 set up veers from Buffalo's standard pre-kindergarten through 8th grade format for primary schools. Parents and staff appreciate the safety benefits of the format, seen also in the school discipline records. School 90 has not suspended any students through the 3.5 months of this school year. When the kids go to pre-K or kindergarten, there's no big boys, there's no 8th graders, there's no 5th graders, says Sharman Sultana, a School 90 substitute teacher whose daughter attended the school. The early childhood focus fits snugly with an emphasis on play at an enclosed open-air playground in the middle of the school. Buffalo Schools spent $56,500 on a project as part of a larger overhaul of 4 spaces last school year. The school is set up beautifully for the youngest students, says Dr. Joseph Merkel, a child and adolescent psychiatrist for the UBMD Psychiatry partner at School 90. The playground helps students burn energy, he added. But from the closure committee's perspective, School 90's low enrollment between 150 and 200 made it a target because of how few students it would displace, especially if you subtract the outgoing 31 second graders. Its chronic, the 74% chronic absentee rate for the 2024 to 25 school year likely did not help its cause, although that metric has improved significantly this year. Its close proximity to other early childhood centers, such as the Stanley Mikowski, could make it easier for the district to move its students and perhaps offset School 90's high proportion of students who walk to school. While the closing committee pointed to some of these factors, they stressed the difficulty of their recommendation. We know that it's going to hurt the whole community, committee member, as Spidell said of the closure process. I don't want school deserts. I want to make sure each community has a place to call their home for schools. Half of School 90's 18 classrooms educate students with disabilities, Hope Barnes said. 6 classrooms hold pre-kindergarten special education students, an area which the district has recently expanded to help meet a growing need. Student makeup influences the staff roster, which includes 23 paraprofessionals and 3.5 speech teacher positions, the principal said. This care for special needs students has been welcomed by parents such as April Connor, who was frustrated finding a placement for her son. I'm in South Buffalo. There's like 5 schools near me, Connor said, but none of those schools would accept my child. Connor can already tell that speech, physical, and occupational therapies, as well as mental health and behavioral help from a school partner, Gateway Longview, are fueling her son's development as a first grader at School 90. He's come so very far, she said. She sees a single-floor building on A Street laid out with accessibility and mobility in mind as a strength for a school that aims to have students with autism, behavioral concerns, and dyslexia fit in seamlessly among a larger population. From an enrollment standpoint, however, special education classrooms can distort surface-level data. They usually hold 8 or fewer students, while general elementary classrooms across the district are capped at 25 to 27 students. The district's special education crisis has Connor worried about what would happen to the students with disabilities if School 90 closes. To take them and just drop them into another special education classroom that's already overwhelmed, it wouldn't be much help, right? Connor said, because these kids thrive on focused, smaller structures. Who knows how many kids will regress from this? Through an after-school rally Tuesday and their vocal opposition to this at the school board meeting, School 90 has made its defense. The speakers on Wednesday noted that Superintendent Pascal Mubenga visited the school earlier this month, but the district has not indicated any detailed plans to move forward with the closure process next month. It was not addressed by school leaders at Wednesday's meeting. I just want to say that our staff, our teachers, concerned citizens, I heard you, Mubenga said. The uncertainty will make it uneasy holiday and perhaps hard conversations within a school population that inherently struggles with change and transitions. Evans worries mostly about her pre-kindergarten students with disabilities who have spent the year forging new friendships. The hardest part is trying to get them to understand you might not see your friend again, she said. Sultana, the substitute, says she cannot grasp why the district would consider closing a school so meaningful to her family. My child still loves her old school, Sultana said of her 4th grader. She still says, I wish there was grade 3 and 4 and I could go there.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, it is. It's very, very difficult.
Yeah. Well, moving on to another tough one.
Yeah.
Small apartments imperil renovation proposed for the Dunn Building. When it comes to apartments, size matters. That's why a board member of the Erie County Industrial Development Agency cast a surprising vote this week to refuse to back tax credits that would be used by McGuire Development Company to renovate the historic Dunn Building downtown from its longtime commercial space, office space, into 36 residential apartments. Cheektowaga Supervisor Brian Nowak said he would not vote in favor of awarding more than $500,000 in tax relief for the $14.2 million project because the studio apartments are just 400 square feet in size, and there are no three-bedroom apartments for families. I've been on this board for 2 years now, and I keep seeing these projects where there are studios and one-bedrooms, he said. I'm becoming complicit in a housing stock that is serving banks more than it's serving people. At some point, we have to say, as a body, what are we doing here? Nowak acknowledged the difficulty that McGuire or any developer would have in redeveloping the tall and narrow building with its small floor plates. I'm thankful for what you guys are doing, and you're doing great work, he said. If I were asked to do something with that building, I'd probably propose what you're proposing, so I don't want you to take it personally. But he said it doesn't serve the community well or meet the housing needs of the market, noting that many new projects now either involve tighter space or luxurious sizes with nothing in the middle. His opposition caught Erie County Executive Mark Poloncarz off guard. Poloncarz said he wasn't surprised by Nowak's comments, but noted that the supervisor had voted in favor of the project and its tax breaks at the ECIDA Policy Committee meeting earlier in the month. And Poloncarz worried that if the agency had taken a vote on the resolution this week, it would have failed because ECIDA rules require at least 10 million, right, try again here, at least 10 affirmative votes for a motion to pass, and only 10 members were present, including Nowak. Further, he warned, a rejection of a project that complied with ECIDA requirements and is similar to other projects previously approved would have exposed the agency to a lawsuit. So Poloncarz asked the board to table the project until next month, noting that neither Buffalo's mayor nor the Common Council president, nor even the Erie County legislator who represents part of the city was in attendance. If it fails, it fails, but I think we need to have a full component of the board here and not have it fail by a bare number, Poloncarz said. If the vote had gone today, it would have gone down. This is not what McGuire executives had expected. We're very concerned because this would create tremendous challenges for this project moving forward if we are not able to receive the incentives we applied for, Eric Ekman, Vice President of Development and Acquisitions, said after the meeting. McGuire, which bought the 36,000 square foot landmark this fall, wants to convert the 10-story structure at 110 Pearl Street, Buffalo's first high-rise building when it was constructed 130 years ago, into a mixed-use, residential-focused project. It would include 36 apartments across its upper 9 floors, with office and retail space on the first floor, and a K. Dara restaurant continuing on the lower garden level. Plans call for 18 one-bedroom units of 601 square feet, 9 two-bedroom apartments of 931 square feet, and 9 studios of 397 to 404 square feet. To help pay for the project, McGuire asked the agency for $436,000 in sales tax breaks and $69,000 in mortgage recording tax relief, and it would obtain a separate property tax break through the city's 485A program. And IDA officials noted that the project carries a return on investment of just 4%, even with the tax breaks, far less than the 10 to 12% rate expected for urban redevelopment. Market rate rents would range from $1,400 to $2,500 per month, but 10% of the units were priced as workforce housing, which is affordable to households earning no more than 80% of the area median income. Originally, McGuire had designated that to consist of 4 studios of 397 square feet, but at the request of the ECIDA's Policy Committee, the developer changed one of those to a larger one-bedroom apartment. That means it met the ECIDA's terms. I do understand the supervisor's views because we do have a problem in the community with affordable housing, Poloncarz said, but I think it would be inappropriate to vote no, and I support this project. Others echoed him. We have a policy. This particular developer not only complied with the policy, but went back with a 4% return, said ECIDA Chairwoman Brenda McDuffie. You can only do certain things with these very narrow old structures. For Nowak, though, it's about the bigger picture. We have to think holistically about the housing stock and what we'd like to see, he said. At some point, we have to think what's the role we want to play and how we can play a stronger role in filling that housing stock. Well, good luck with that.
Wow. A man who enticed 2 women into sex acts gets prison term. And this is from Patrick LeCamp. Good. A Jamestown man who admittedly enticed 2 homeless, drug-addicted women to travel to Erie, Pennsylvania to perform commercial sex acts was sentenced Wednesday to 7.5 years in prison. I'm truly sorry, Anthony Burris, 35, told Senior U.S. District Judge William Scratney at his sentencing hearing. I'm embarrassed to be speaking like this in front of my mother. I made some poor decisions. Burris previously pleaded guilty to 2 counts of enticing travel to engage in sexual activity. Prosecutors said that between June of 2020 and March of 2021, Burris manipulated 2 women with illegal drugs and threatened them physically to force them to have sexual relations with clients that he found by advertising on an internet site. According to prosecutors, Burris also provided the women with food, housing, and cell phones, transported them to meet with the clients at various places in western New York, Pennsylvania, and elsewhere, and then collected all the proceeds from them. Federal sentencing guidelines suggest a prison term of 11 to 14 years. However, after lengthy plea negotiations, Burris and prosecutors agreed to a sentence of 7.5 years. He's already spent more than 4.5 years in jail since his arrest. Assuming good time credit, he will have about 2 years left to serve. His drug use at the time contributed to his poor decisions, said defense attorneys Cheryl Myers Booth. Burris, who was raised by his mother to have respect for women, has shown remorse, Myers Booth said. But the prosecutors assigned to the case, however, said in a recent court filing that Burris sought to minimize his crimes by dismissing the women as drug-addicted prostitutes.
Good place to stop.
Okay.
Sandra Tan, the news staff reporter, tells us that when Erie County Democratic Party Chairman Jeremy Zellner got his party to elect him as commissioner for the Erie County Board of Elections in 2017, it raised some eyebrows. The idea of a behind-the-scenes political recruiter also having authority and oversight over the county's elections and voting process seemed rife with conflict of interest potential. The fact that the commissioner's job also came with a 6-figure salary didn't help lower any of those eyebrows. But while Zellner still fields criticism from political opponents regarding his dual role, he and his Republican commissioner counterpart Ralph Moore have won plaudits as a team that tackled some of the most challenging times for voters in the voting process in New York. I don't have anything negative to say about him, Moore said. He added that he also wasn't eager to say nice things that will only raise Zellner's public profile while he runs for the 61st District State Senate seat being vacated by Buffalo Mayor-elect Sean Ryan. That's why Zellner isn't keeping his Board of Elections job. Once Governor Kathy Hochul calls for a special election to fill his 61st district in early January, Zellner said he plans to resign as commissioner the same day to avoid any conflict of interest. The 61st district encompasses all of Amherst, the city and town of Tonawanda, Grand Island, and much of the city of Buffalo. Moore and Zellner addressed a series of challenges and reforms over the years, including the COVID-19 pandemic, the conversion to electronic voting and polling tablets, broader mail-in ballot access, and the countywide implementation of early voting. Zellner meets monthly by video conference with other Democratic elections commissioners across the state. When he met with them this month, presumably for the last time, he said he choked up as he said goodbye. I'm absolutely going to miss it, he said. But the chance to represent residents of the 61st District is worth it. He noted he would make about $163,000 if he remained elections commissioner, while the Senate seat pays $142,000. A lot of folks say, gee, this is going to be handed over. It's not, he said. The 61st District of voters are going to have 3 opportunities to choose who is the best candidate to represent their interests next year.
Well, you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. It is now 18 minutes past the hour, and we are going to move on to sports.
We're not going to do the advice column?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did we miss that? All right, well, then I guess we're going to read that. Advice column.
Well, we don't want to miss out on Eric's advice.
All right. Boyfriend babysitting grandkids infringes on a relationship. This is from our Eric Thomas. Dear Eric, my boyfriend and I have been together for more than 15 years. He has children and grandchildren. One child is divorced, single, and parent with 2 teenage kids and 1 younger. My boyfriend has to be with them whenever the parent works. After work, instead of going home, the parent decides to go out, knowing my boyfriend will be there. He and I have had to schedule our time to go out around the parent's work schedule. I realize he may have certain obligations, but he and I need a social life. I should not have to depend on his child's schedule all the time. I never feel first. We're both retired and should be able to enjoy the last few years of life, not on someone else's schedule. I was a single mom years ago and managed my children, work, and social calendar on the support of my own, finding sitters, etc. Guest times have changed. Helping out is wonderful, but taking advantage is another. Any ideas? And she signs this sitter situation. And the answer is, Dear Sitter, after 15 years together, I'm surprised this difference of opinion hasn't come up, but even so, it's so useful to have a calm conversation about schedule, and you might want to go in some specific asks. I'd like to go out on Fridays. Can we make that a regular night in which you're not available to babysit? He may agree, he may not. Both are opportunities to continue the conversation by compromising and asking questions. The biggest question is whether he sees a social life as an important part of your relationship. If babysitting is something he enjoys and doesn't want to change, then the conversation can shift to ways you both get your needs met. If you want to feel first, which is a fine way to feel, but it may not feel the way you think it will. The needs of family are going to be different from the needs of a love relationship, and the needs of children and teens are going to be different from the needs of adults. It may not be fair to ask him to choose over his grandchildren, but it is fair to tell him you want to feel like your relationship is a priority and talk through concrete actions that communicate prioritization to him. This also gives him a chance to talk about what his priorities are. Ideally, these conversations will help you to see each other more clearly and know how to show each other love more effectively. And then...
Well, I figured out why he was looking perplexed at me. I was looking at the wrong place on the sheet.
Well, that's okay. We'll just switch a couple things around.
We'll make it work.
We'll make it work.
We always do.
We're able to... Yeah, I was a little puzzled, and I thought, well, let's just do this. We're going to read Eric anyway. And speaking of reading Eric... Our next letter. Dear Eric, currently I'm living with my significant other at his son's apartment. We pay rent and have our own room. His son is 36 years old, divorced with no kids. He's a pleasant guy and seems responsible. Last night he let the daughter of a friend stay over and she slept on a bed in his room. She's 12 or 13 years old. I am horrified. So am I. I don't believe that anything inappropriate is going on, but this is still inappropriate on so many levels. I'm a retired criminal defense attorney, and I also was an ADA in juvenile court, and I have just seen how badly this can go.
Oh, my.
All she has to do is get upset about something and make an accusation, and he is toast. He works in maintenance for the local school district. Job lost, no getting it back. Friendship done, not getting it back, and a question mark hanging over his head constantly. People will always have a little suspicion over him. My question is, do I talk to him? He's not my son, he hasn't asked. I'm afraid I would be just offending him and he'd kick us out. But this is not just appropriate. And honestly, I'm surprised her parents are okay with this. And your thoughts? What are your thoughts? And it's signed In a Quandary. And he answers, Dear Quandary, this raises a lot of concerns for me too. For the child and the adult is perplexing at best, harmful at worst. Talk to him about it for 2 reasons. First, even though you're a guest in his home, you're still entitled to bring up things that make you uncomfortable. This is a shared space, and his choices about his shared space alarmed you. At the very least, he can answer those questions so that everyone can peacefully coexist. The second, is your professional experience. He may not be seeing what you're seeing, and even though he may not agree with your take, you're not accusing him of anything or telling him what to do. You're sharing an informed perspective. Even at its most innocent, this choice that your partner's son made indicates there's a need for more communication in the home. And you might mention, how about watching the news?
That's just something.
That one is a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, I would have to say so.
Alrighty.
All right, now we're going to
And now
sports.
let's go to the sports now.
And I think maybe I'll take your first article. We can swap the rest of them. How's that sound?
Whatever works.
All right. This is from Rachel Lindsay, the news sports reporter. Sabres defenseman Kesselring ready for reset. A bad kind of lightning struck Michael Kesselring twice over the course of the less than 3 months. The Buffalo Sabres defenseman had never missed an extended amount of time due to injury as a professional prior to this season. Kesselring has already missed 23 of the Sabres' first 32 games, with 2 separate injuries after the Sabres acquired him in June from the Utah Mammoth as part of the trade for J.J. Peterka. Now, Kesselring was ready to reboot when he returned to the lineup yesterday as the Sabres hosted the Philadelphia Flyers at KeyBank Center. I missed a few games being sick during COVID and stuff like that, Kesselring said, but the first time being out during the season, it's different. It's not fun, especially on a new team. And that was the hardest part. A new team, you got to make a good impression. Kesselring missed the first 9 games of the season with an undisclosed injury he sustained in training camp, and has missed the last 14 games with a lower body injury he sustained after a hit on the Red Wings forward Emmett Finney in a 5-4 overtime win November 15th at Detroit. Sabres coach Lindy Ruff said last month that Kesselring sustained a knee injury that kept him out of the first 9 games of the season. He played his first game with the Sabres in a 4-3 overtime loss October 28th versus Columbus. He played nearly 18 minutes over 23 shifts, all at even strength, and bluntly assessed his play in the first 9 games, in which he blocked 9 shots and had 7 hits, but had 17 giveaways and only 1 takeaway. I didn't play great when I came back, Kesselring said. I was still battling the first injury a little bit, so I was putting a lot of pressure on myself. It was actually kind of good to reset a little bit. I don't want to miss more games, but I got a good little reset in. I feel a lot better than I did the first time, too, with my other injury. It's really exciting to get back. I feel like I'm in a really good spot. Kesselring said yesterday the first injury is improving, but he anticipates dealing with it for the remainder of the season. He was dealing with a little bit of a left ankle sprain after he was injured at Detroit. I took a few weeks off the ice, just training and stuff, and kind of rehabbing my first injury, too, Kesselring said. I wasn't feeling really great from that still yet. I got a few more weeks rehabbing that, then got back on the ice. The ankle feels great. At 6'6", Kesselring brings size and physicality, plus a strong right-hand shot, and his return will further fortify a defense that was down to 6 players as it began its 6-game road trip more than 2 weeks ago. He's been trying to play catch-up from that first injury, and he's already said he feels better than he did the last time he was coming back, Ruff said. We know he's a great skater, but that injury kind of set him back. He'll execute the first pass, and he'll get involved when you can get involved because he's got a great set of legs to get up the ice. Owen Power worked in a defensive pairing with Kesselring during the morning skate yesterday. He sees the game pretty well, so it makes it easier for me, and he defends hard, said Power, who has worked with Jacob Bryson in the last 14 games. When you have that, when you have someone that's able to kill plays and move the puck well, it makes my job easier. Okay, moving on.
And now Bosa for the perfect fit.
Yep.
So Lance Lazowski writes to us that Bosa's feeling well with the Bills and excels on the field. Joey Bosa pulled his shoulder pads over his head and placed his helmet inside his locker stall Wednesday afternoon before he politely declined to answer questions for this story. I have to go take care of this old man body, Bosa said, tongue-in-cheek. Bosa's only 30 years old. He leads the Buffalo Bills with 5 sacks. No one else in the NFL has had as many forced fumbles as Bosa's 5. But self-deprecating humor is one way he has remained humble. 10 seasons into the NFL, he is obsessive about the work that he does off the field each week to ensure that he's ready on game days. Early mornings at One Bills Drive. Late days because he's spending extra time in the gym or watching video. But as the Bills prepared Thursday for their game against the Cleveland Browns, Bosa made time to go sit down with the Buffalo News to reflect on his first season in Buffalo and provide insight into his plan to keep producing. This just says a lot about the organization and the people that have brought in that it has been so easy for me to fit in here, Bosa said after practice Thursday afternoon. Feels like home. Feels like I've been here way longer than 16 weeks, and all of it's been incredibly enjoyable. I don't know how else I don't know how I'd fit anywhere else, but I'm happy I made this decision. The Los Angeles Chargers cut Bosa in March because they value the $25.36 million in the cap savings over the production that he may have been able to give them in 2025. He played just 28 games over the previous 3 seasons because of injuries. A groin tear cost him most of the 2022 season. There was a foot sprain in 2023, followed by a broken hand and hamstring string issue in 2024, and it took Bosa less than a week to agree with the Bills on a 1-year, $12.5 million contract. 29 single with 29 edge rushers have a higher salary, according to Over the Cap. But general manager Brandon Beane took a risk by signing Bosa and cutting Von Miller. If Bosa had stayed healthy, then he could have been the closer the Bills' defense had been missing since Miller tore his ACL in December of 2022. If Bosa couldn't stay healthy, there'd be a significant hole in the defense that needed to improve its pass rush. No one on the free agent market, especially at that price, had Bosa's production. The 5-time Pro Bowl selection had been double-digit sacks in 4 of his first 6 NFL seasons. The Bills learned quickly that Bosa fit perfectly within the culture built and cultivated by Coach Sean McDermott and Beane. He loves living in Western New York, and his personality, picture a gentle giant with a wry sense of humor and a love for cartoon SpongeBob SquarePants, has endeared him to teammates. Off the field, he's become a leader. When Bosa noticed this week that cornerback Maxwell Hairston was discouraged by his performance against New England, the veteran pulled the rookie aside to remind him that winning is all that matters. It's easier to learn from mistakes after a victory than a loss. Bosa told Hairston, number one, he loves football, McDermott said of Bosa. He loves the process, loves to work at it. I think those, right off the top of my head at least, are 2 or 3 important things of being a good football player, the guys that we look for. The important part for us is trying to keep him as fresh as possible down the stretch here so he can be as effective as possible for us in the pass rush game in particular. Therein lies a predicament for Bosa and the Bills with 3 games remaining in the regular season. Taking him off the field is not easy because he's their best pass rusher. But playing for Bosa as 100% of the snaps increases the risk of an injury with the playoffs approaching. The team's depth at edge rusher took a significant hit with the season-ending injuries to Michael Holt and Landon Jackson. T.J. Sanders and the Bills' second-round pick were needed to return to his natural position, defensive tackle, this week after helping the team at edge the past few games. The Bills at 10-4 have not clinched a playoff spot yet either, so they don't have the luxury of backing off their best players in games against struggling teams such as the Browns at 3-11. Even if Buffalo clinches Sunday, it has to use the final 2 games to improve its seeding. Bosa and the coaching staff have worked since late July to find the right balance that allows him to contribute on game days without the unnecessary miles to his body. This time of year is really important to stay on top of it because this is the home stretch, and a lot of the time the team is healthier and playing together at the end of the year is the team that's winning, Bosa said. Trying not to think too much about it and continue to stick with my process, that I know puts me in the right spot. Bosa has played 65% of the Bills' defensive snaps, his highest share since 2021. He's eclipsed 73% in 4 games, including Sunday at Gillette Stadium, when Bosa played 39 snaps in a come-from-behind win over the Patriots. Yes. The Bills have been cautious with Bosa of late because he has dealt with injuries to his left wrist and a hamstring. For the wrist, Bosa has experimented with several different casts and wraps, but the injury has a noticeable impact. In weeks 1 through 9, Bosa's pressure rate, 17.5%, was 8th highest in the NFL, and it plummeted to 6.3% in weeks 10 to 13. Bosa could not play in week 14 because of a hamstring injury that he suffered during the win over Pittsburgh Steelers on November 30th. Bosa has 1 sack in his last 5 games. The drop in production would have bothered Bosa earlier in his career because statistics were validating. Winning is at the front of his mind now, though. He understands how difficult it is to accomplish what Buffalo has during this 3-game win streak, and he understands the opportunity in front of the Bills. He's an interesting guy, Bills defensive tackle DaQuan Jones said. He really is. but I love him. I think he's awesome. The dialogue we have in that room is with everybody. He fits the mold perfectly, and we all have very similar interests, believe it or not. SpongeBob SquarePants? He's just a great guy to be around on the football field, and he's a nasty player. He goes out there and plays to the best of ability, and he's very passionate about that, and you have to admire that. McDermott cited a fourth down play Sunday against the Patriots as an example of Bosa's selflessness. He did not care when McDermott, the defensive coordinator Bobby Badgett, called a simulated blitz that had the edge rusher drop into coverage. Bosa wants to be the guy sacking the quarterback in that situation, but he approached the assignment with the same intensity as he would when a pass rush. Bosa battled down Drake May's pass to help Bills quarterback Josh Allen complete the 21-point comeback. Bosa has emerged as arguably the best bargain of the 2025 free agent class. He was brought to Buffalo, however, to perform in the playoffs. Remember how they weren't able to get to Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship game? Bosa hit him 5 times and sacked him once in the Buffalo's 28-20 win over Kansas City Chiefs in Week 9. He refuses to think about anything other than Buffalo's game in Cleveland, but his coaches had the bigger picture in mind. We've got to make sure that Joey's ready to roll and is feeling as fresh as possible as late as we get into the season, Babish said.
Let's skip the rest of the sports, go to the break, and then I'll pick up that first article right after your advice column thing.
You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. It's 35 minutes past the hour. My goodness, we've run over, haven't we?
Yeah, I'm afraid we did. Well, that was because of my blunder on throwing in the advice column when it didn't belong there. But
well, you would do what happens.
Circling back, though, to that article about Michael Kesselring, the Sabres defenseman, it mentioned that he got back in the lineup last night against the Philadelphia Flyers. The Sabres won that game 5-3, moving above 500 for the season. So
can't argue that.
Yeah, can't argue that. So, turning to the life features from Jonathan Epstein in development, work is set to begin on the rehab project at the Marine Drive Apartments. The remake of one of Buffalo's most high-profile housing developments is about to kick into gear. Construction is set to get underway on the redevelopment of Marine Drive Apartments as the Buffalo Municipal Housing Authority and its developer partners prepare to kick off the second of 3 major rehab projects across the city's public housing portfolio. The Habitat Company, together with Duvernay and Brooks and BMHA affiliate Bridges Development, are transforming the aging housing project next to Canalside, replacing 616 apartments in the existing towers with 686, that's 70 more apartments, 686 modern and mixed-income housing units. Plans call for current residents to remain, while the developers complete the first phase of the project with construction of 254 affordable apartments across a 12-story tower, a 7-story tower, and a row of 3-story townhouses. That ensures that no one is displaced during construction, and residents will have new homes to move into first. The first phase will also include a 3-level parking garage and ground floor commercial space. The reimagining of Marine Drive Apartments will deliver a vibrant, connected community that reflects the voices of residents and the energy of Buffalo's evolving waterfront. Jeff Head, Vice President of Development for Habitat's Affordable Group, said in a statement. The developers said late Wednesday that they had completed their purchase of the 70-year-old property from the BMHA itself and closed on a complex package of financing for the first part of the 3-phase project, whose total cost is expected to exceed $600 million, including infrastructure improvements around the site. That's the last step before work can commence, and the partners have already begun site preparation on the adjacent parking lot where the new buildings will go, with plans for officially breaking ground in the spring. Officials had hoped to close on the financing a few months ago, but it took longer than expected for the multi-layered package to be finalized. This is a significant milestone in Marine Drive's transformational journey, not only for affordable housing in Buffalo, but also for our city's vibrant, growing waterfront, said Gillian D. Brown, BMHA Executive Director. We at the BMHA couldn't be prouder of this achievement and the tremendous redevelopment that's to come. The first phase is financed through a public-private partnership among Enterprise Community Partners, Buffalo-based M&T Bank Corporation, and New York State Homes and Community Renewal, which is providing $208 million. HCR's contribution includes tax-exempt bond financing through the New York State Housing Finance Agency and a package of both federal and state low-income housing tax credits that will be purchased by M&T. This important milestone in the redevelopment of Marine Drive Apartments was made possible through our local partners and the leadership from the state, said Brian Heeger, partner at DuVernay and Brooks. Financing also includes $31.6 million of equity from state brownfield tax credits that M&T also bought. Additionally, the project receives funding through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's Rental Assistance Demonstration Program, along with $2 million from the Buffalo Urban Renewal Agency and $900,000 from the city. The Marine Drive redevelopment is a landmark investment that will deliver modern, sustainable homes while protecting affordability and stability for hundreds of families, said Tracy Woodrow, M&T Bank Western New York Regional President and Chief Administrative Officer. This initiative expands access to housing and paves the way for a waterfront that is vibrant and thriving, a legacy that will benefit Buffalo and its residents for generations to come. Originally built in 1950 as part of an urban renewal effort to clear blight and initially dubbed Dante Place Apartments, the 7 high-rise towers of Marine Drive were built in what was then a somewhat abandoned industrial district of the city, rather than one of the wealthiest areas of the city as it is today, according to the application. Besides the buildings, the complex includes sidewalks, play areas, landscaping, and 370 surface parking spaces. But the apartments are old and small, ranging from 400 square feet for a one-bedroom unit to 735 square feet for a 3-bedroom apartment. The hallways are narrow and inaccessible for those with physical disabilities. Ceilings are low, elevators are too small, and there aren't enough windows. And the infrastructure is outdated and in disrepair, leading to sewage backups, water main breaks, and elevator disruptions, the application noted. The BMHA and the developers considered rehabbing or reconfiguring the current setup, but concluded it would be costly and wouldn't address the shortfalls. A feasibility study determined instead that complete replacement was the best path forward. Working with the BMHA and community residents, the developers finalized new plans and obtained a planned unit development designation from the city. Working hand in hand with residents, neighbors, and partners like the BMHA helped shape a plan that preserves and expands affordable housing, ensuring current residents can remain in the place many have called home for generations, Head said. The overwhelming support for this project underscores a shared vision for a strong, inclusive Buffalo, and we are proud to reach this key milestone as construction gets underway. The 5-year project, designed by SWBR Architects and erected by Krista Construction, calls for 8 new buildings of varying sizes and heights with a new configuration of 1, 2, 3, and 4-bedroom units to meet the needs of the current and expanded population. All units will get spacious and accessible layouts with modern kitchens, energy-efficient appliances, updated bathrooms, new flooring and windows, and better electrical and internet service. The buildings will have modern elevators, new heating and air conditioning systems, secure package delivery and storage, and community rooms with outdoor patios on the top floors. The project will also feature 855 parking spaces, 5,000 square feet of ground floor retail and commercial space, a 1-story community center, a public plaza, and green space. And it includes infrastructure changes such as improvements to the electrical grid, better water and sewer lines, street enhancements, and the new parking garage. Additionally, the redesigned street grid will connect the apartments to Canalside with new streets and sidewalks. It seems to me a brilliant plan. Build a brand new building and then move a bunch of people out of one of the existing buildings, or maybe more than one, into that new building, and then tear down that building and replace it with a new one. Meanwhile, everybody's got a place to live during the process.
Yeah, that'd be smart.
I'm impressed.
The original name they came up with, though, Dante Place, all I could think of is Dante's Inferno.
My.
I don't even want to go there, but it doesn't have the greatest reputation now, although Inferno is not quite been there, and I hope it never does.
Yeah, right.
Move on to health insurance. This is an analysis. Health insurance, again, emergency is a bitter pill for the GOP. And this is from Carl Hulse of the New York Times. Congressional Republicans won big election victories in 2010, riding the Tea Party revolt against President Barack Obama's Affordable Care Act. But the health care issue has inflicted considerable political pain on them ever since, and is threatening to do so again in 2026 with their control of the House and Senate on the line. Deep Republican struggles on national health policy were starkly evident on Capitol Hill in recent days as a handful of Republicans in both chambers broke with their party to join Democrats' efforts to extend pandemic-era health insurance subsidies set to expire at the end of the year. Their defections were not enough to save the subsidies, which Republican majorities in both chambers refused to preserve. But they did reflect major divisions within the GOP, which has repeatedly failed to produce a realistic and workable alternative to the ACA, also known as Obamacare. And they pushed the fight over health care costs into the midterm election year, putting Republicans under intense pressure to deliver in a difficult political environment on a subject that has proved among their greatest vulnerabilities. Other than world peace, honest to God, health care is the toughest issue ever, said Representative Jeff Van Drew, the Republican from New Jersey. It's really hit hard, but I think it behooves us to come up with something. That something has proved extensively or extremely elusive as a backlash of the new law and promises to repeal put Republicans in control of the House in 2010 while cutting substantially into what had been a commanding Democratic majority in the Senate. Since Senator John McCain, a Republican from Arizona, famously turned his thumb down in the early morning of July 28th of 2017 on his party's plan to repeal the health law, Republicans have been on the defensive over what their party's answer is for health care, if not the ACA. The situation has created a frustrating predicament for Republicans who note that many members of both parties agree that the federal health care system has become unwieldy and unaffordable since the passage of Obamacare, which broadened access to health coverage and required insurers to cover pre-existing conditions, yet has been unable to agree on how to fix it. We worked on repealing and replacing Obamacare back in 2017, House Speaker Mike Johnson told reporters in October. I still have PTSD from the experience. After McCain scuttled Republicans' bid to scrap the health law, Democrats stormed back into the House majority in 2018 as they focused on the threat to the ACA and the possibility that people with pre-existing medical conditions could lose coverage under the GOP. Health care was on the ballot, and health care won. Republican Representative Nancy Pelosi, the Democrat from California, returning to the speakership, declared in summoning up the Democratic victory. Then in 2020, deep anxiety over the pandemic and the handling of it by President Trump, combined with voter unease about Republicans and health care, and helped put Joe Biden in the White House and produce a Senate Democratic majority, handing the party unified government control. The constant refrain from Trump that a Republican alternative to the health law was just around the corner became a punchline as one never materialized. This was the case again in recent months when the president repeatedly said he would come up with something better than Obamacare. He then contemplated endorsing an extension of the subsidies, but ultimately declined to weigh in with any proposal, leaving Republicans in the Congress rudderless. The truth is, Republicans have always said they have a plan, but they never had a plan. Representative Jim McGovern of Massachusetts, the senior Democrat in the Rules Committee, said Wednesday, as Democrats pounded them on the health care subsidies in recent days, they toiled to come up with something their members could vote for. House and Senate Republicans did produce proposals. Both featured recycled GOP ideas on health savings accounts and cutting red tape around prescriptions, among other elements. The Senate plan hit a stalemate while the House bill passed narrowly with a party line vote with no immediate path forward. Neither did anything about the expiring subsidies. Republicans assailed the ACA as fraud-ridden and fiscally unsustainable, labeling it the Unaffordable Health Care Act. as illustrated by the fact that Americans need costly subsidies just to be able to purchase coverage on the government exchanges. They constantly note that no Republican ever backed the ACA, which was muscled through exclusively with Democrat votes, and that Democrats themselves scheduled these subsidies to expire, creating the current crisis. Republicans hate Obamacare like the devil hates holy water. Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois, the number 2 Senate Democrat, observed in summing up the Republican view of the health law. While saying they favor more market-based solutions, Republicans also concede they have very difficult time coming together on a health care plan. It's a complicated issue, no doubt about it. A lot of moving parts, and we have very different visions about what health care ought to look like. Senator John Thune, Republican from South Dakota, the majority leader, said this week. There was a long-standing political weakness of the Republicans on health care that motivated Democrat leaders, Representative Hakeem Jeffries and Senators Chuck Schumer, both of New York, to make the expiring tax subsidies issue the center of the government shutdown. Democrats believe the Republican flailing in recent days showed their risky approach was the right one, positioning the GOP to get the blame for spiking premium costs. When it comes to health care, the damage has been done, Schumer said. Americans will know when health care dies it was Republicans who did it. In the Senate, a large bipartisan group of senators met this week to try to find some common ground on health care policy and a way forward in January emerged with some optimism. At the end of the day, what the American people need to understand, despite maybe some of the headlines, is that there are people working here with good intentions who actually solve problems, said Senator Bernie Moreno, a Republican from Ohio, one of the organizers of the bipartisan group, said. The decision on Wednesday by 4 House Republicans to cross party lines and clinch a Democratic discharge petition to force a vote on a 3-year extension of the health care subsidies means the issue will confront Congress early next year. Johnson has promised extensive debate on Republican health care alternatives, a potentially dangerous move in an election year given the party's political exposure on the issue. Republicans are the ones who will fix health care, Johnson said in an interview on CNBC as he accused Democrats of mainly trying to gin up a campaign issue. They don't want a solution to this, he said. Well, apparently neither do Republicans.
No, really not. Nobody wants that. Well, Shane Goldmacher of the New York Times reports that the Democratic National Committee is killing its autopsy of the 2024 election. Ken Martin, the chair of the DNC, said yesterday, he had decided not to publish a report that he ordered months ago into what went wrong for the Democratic Party last year. Party officials have conducted more than 300 interviews with Democrats in all 50 states to create a document that Martin had once pitched as crucial to charting a path forward. Martin will instead keep the findings under seal. He believes that looking back so publicly and painfully at the past would prove counterproductive for the party as it tries next year to take back power in Congress, according to a DNC spokesperson who spoke on the condition of an anonymity to share the thinking behind his decision. Here's our North Star. Does this help us win? Martin said in a statement. If the answer is no, it's a distraction from the core mission. Many Democrats want to move on from 2024 and keep the focus on President Trump. They feel they began the year demoralized, but now feel emboldened after the party's series of victories last month and strong showings in special elections this year. Still, even if it is good politics to stuff the report in the filing cabinet, Democrats may well be avoiding self-examination and a chance for introspection. It's reflective of a broader problem within the party, which is we are scared of ever making anyone in our coalition upset, said Simon Bazelon, a Democratic researcher who was lead author of a different autopsy called Deciding to Win that was released by Welcome PAC, a centrist group. I understand the incentives involved there, but it also limits us in a lot of ways because it means we can't address difficult questions head on. Others cheered the shelving of a document that was likely to divide the party's coalition. Haven't we rehashed 2024 enough, said Daniel Wessel, a former communications advisor to the DNC. We just won a bunch of elections this year. There's a lot of good to be learned from there. The party's brand still appears deeply damaged in the eyes of many voters. A national poll from Quinnipiac University this week found that only 18% of voters approved of how Democrats in Congress are doing their job, a record low. Since the day of his election in February, Martin had promised an audit of 2024's mistakes and a roadmap for the future. He was adamant that it not be called an autopsy because he said the party was not dead. He preferred the more anodyne label after-action review. No matter the title, the report's existence has proved contentious. Those initially briefed on the planned document over the summer had said it would skirt past the question of whether former President Joe Biden should have run for re-election, as well as key decisions from the campaign of former Vice President Kamala Harris. There's been subsequent tussling behind the scenes about both the audit's scope and who should take the brunt of the blame for Harris' loss. Some senior Harris officials declined to be interviewed. Rising dissatisfaction with Trump and the economy could be a recipe for Democratic success in 2026, even if voters continue to have misgivings about the party. In the Quinnipiac poll, it showed record low approval of congressional Democrats. Voters said by 4 percentage points that they would prefer Democratic control of Congress to a Republican majority. Harris took place for the spending that occurred after she became the nominee. The buck stops with me, she said. There are a lot of expenses associated with running for president of the United States, especially a new candidate with only 3.5 months to get the campaign underway.
I think we're getting to the end here.
Afraid so. It's been fun.
I think this is the funniest comic.
Absolutely.
So here is Jeremy yelling, "I picked up my clothes and made up my bed. That's it, I swear." And there's his mother yelling, "I thought we'd been burglarized." And there's 2 police officials standing there saying, "Son, don't scare your mother like that."
That's a prize winner.
Yes, it is.
You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, Friday, December 19th. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
J.J. Patek
and Don Williams. Thanks for listening. And with 2 Fridays off because of the holidays, we'll be back next year.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio Reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. If you're worried about food, heating assistance, or other basic needs for your household, help is available. Call 211 for local food pantries, meal services, and other supports in your neighborhood. That's 211. Available 24 hours a day, every day, with free and confidential referrals. Get the help you need today. You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Radio Reading broadcasts daily readings 24 hours a day of newspapers, magazines, and books to people who are blind or have a print disability and are provided reading radios. Radio Reading's broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. From broadcast studios at 1199 Harlem Road, Radio Reading continues our almost 40-year tradition of award-winning service. For more information on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, call 716-821-5555. Coming up next on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have Adirondack Life. Following that at noon is today's USA Today. Stay with us for these readings and more. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision,